Hello and welcome to the video tutorial how to paint a dinosaur head in a winter scene. This painting I found at a flea market. I had to repaint it already because it was all chipped off. It's actually on glass. And I painted the back gray because I didn't really like how it was translucent. So first thing you gotta do is mix up some colors, and I like to start with making like a really deep brown. You can do that just by starting with your purple first, mixing red and blue. As you can see, my palette, I just have yellow, red, and blue. That was black, and that's some white hiding over there. Now you want to cut down the purpleness, so you add a little bit of yellow to it, and that'll change it. Now when we come back to the painting, we have to figure out where, exactly should this dinosaur head go. So I don't want to create any tangents, and a tangent happens when two objects meet in the same place. So like if you put somebody's head and it ended right here, like the top of their head ended there, you wouldn't be able to differentiate between this back and the top of the head. So those are bad. And right now I'm just going to sketch, 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 sketch. Get in the jawbone. I'm kind of freestyling this dinosaur because just as all people come in different shapes and sizes, dinosaurs also come in all shapes and sizes. So this is probably where his jawline will be. Or maybe it's a her. When we're inside the womb, until our cremaster muscles pull our ovaries down into a ball sack, we're all actually born the same gender, which is an indeterminate gender. So this guy is also starting out with an indeterminate gender so far. And we just play here. He's kind of surprised to have stumbled upon this cabin in the woods. Perhaps he was in a time portal of some sort. Some nostrils. I'm going to flatten out the top here. Indicate some structure of the skull. Remember, we're just going with one color here, so we're using both line and value. And value just means shadow. So right now we're just kind of blocking in big areas which we imagine will be in shadow. Yeah. If you're ever not sure what to paint, I would suggest you go over to a Reddit subreddit called Sketch Daily, and every day they have a different theme of stuff you can paint. Now, this dinosaur is going to have some scales. Maybe he should have some hair. I kind of imagine him having hair too. It's kind of weird to think of animals with hair and scales, isn't it? I guess there's not a lot of those. But perhaps this hair was, kind of more like ostrich feathers. So we're just imagining some ostrich feathers in here. Now, if you notice back on my palette here, You can see I've already made a value scale, and this is a good way to start with painting. Always have your dark and be able to compare it against something else. If you're looking at my brush, it's just a flat, yeah, it's a flat brush. These are generally for acrylic, but they make pretty nice edges, so you can use them in lots of different circumstances. It's always about edges. So now we can mix this and we can look at it right up against that. When we come back to our painting here, and you can't really see it much on the camera, but on the real painting there's just a slight differentiation. I think this is probably going to pop down a little bit so we can give him a little bit more shapely high cheekbones here. Yeah. And we're just going to dab in some more of this next value shape. Think of some other places this could be. Now once we're here, I'm going to go back to my palette again, and once again I'm going to go up the ladder. You can always just steal some white. Always add your white to the color you're mixing. Actually, don't do that. Make a separate pile of white. This is getting a little bit too blue for my taste. So we bring it into purple. I suppose knowing about the different types of plants during whatever, the Paleolithic era or wherever this guy lived, would tell us more about these colors. But right now we pretty much just have to kind of wing it. So we can plop down a section there, paint, see how that paint's working with that paint. And we start carving out our next round. Just going up the ladder here. Kind of treat things like watercolor at this stage, because we're not really sure yet. Still using large shapes. Yeah, that's starting to be alright. This is obviously a goofy section here, but we can cut that up with our final white. So I'm going to go back to my palette. Keep going up the ladder of success. Up the value scale. You have an even brighter value there. You can see in these areas you can make lines really small even though you have a big brush. Just by like cutting two larger shapes. That's how you paint. You're only thinking about edges. Cutting edges, making edges smaller. They're just like little borders of countries. And you're making your own little map to represent your dinosaur head. Yeah, I like that. You know, in World War II, there was, I don't know what it was, maybe a bombing plane, a bomber I guess they call it, and it got shot down near Japan, and 11 Navy service members were falling into the ocean, and 10 of them were taken as prisoners of war, and they actually got taken in this really small island. And on this small island, the people actually engaged in cannibalism. Anyway, the 11 service members were all eaten, and, well, 10 service members were eaten, actually. Because one of them was picked up by an American ship. One of them, I don't know, he landed in a different area or something near to a different boat, or he was stuck in the fuselage. And I don't know exact details. But anyway, he got ejected and he got saved by an American ship. And while all of his comrades were eaten, he went on to be the President of the United States. And his name was George Bush the First. Nothing against prisoners of war, of course, but I have heard some people say throughout the years that a prisoner of war should never become president because they could suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. And that's why even a lot of military members were actually against the idea of John McCain becoming president. Yeah, this guy's looking pretty good. Some more highlights on there. Now I just switched to this little brush. He's gonna have some teeth here as well, but I think those are gonna come last. Now we're just going to keep playing with our edges. This space is kind of annoying. But the good thing about oils is you can kind of tap out your gradations. And basically what I'm doing now is blending my shadows with my brush. I'm not even cleaning it. I'm just rolling with it. Yeah, he should probably have kind of a yellow eye, shouldn't he? You know that planaria have, well, evolutionarily speaking, planaria were some of the first eyes. Before they were just a bunch of photosensitive cells. But they could see. They seem quite different than how we see. But again, painting's always based upon our perceptions of the world. Give him a little bit of orange in his eye there. Cool. There's some people who argue that since things are complex, that there must be a maker, right? So some people argue that evolution is impossible to explain how we got here, because our bodies are just too complicated. But sometimes things take a very, very long time to change. And the eye took billions of years to function the way we have it functioning now. And since we don't have to lie around, well, that's another theory too, that we're supposed to actually lie around more than we do. This idea that we were always supposed to work or go out and hunt. Grizzly bears don't go out and hunt every day. They like chill out, they sleep half the year. Lions don't hunt all the time. They sit in the sand under the tree. We kind of have this obsession, acting as if we always gotta be busy, busy, busy. But we don't have to be. Just depends on what we want in life. So what I'm doing now is I just got some white. I'm starting to bring my highlights in. I'm kind of enjoying this small brush more and more as I use it. So we can just put that paint right on top and blend the edges. And a lot of people, when they get to this stage, they push too hard, or they're not using opaque paint. But you just gotta work with it, slow and easy. Yeah. Wherever you have bones, you'll tend to have highlights. Things that are hard edges will catch the light in a more dramatic fashion. And sometimes we have shadows. This guy is in the snow, for instance, so he's going to have shadows kind of bouncing up from the snow as well. The underside of his neck and jawline. But again, we're just dealing with edges here. How edges work. Yeah, this edge is much too hard, so we're going to soften that up. There we go. Yeah, we're just gonna live on the outsides of the shadows on the outside of society. Kind of like your friend that decided to go off the grid, but who keeps posting on Facebook somehow. Now this area seems a little bit too light, so we're going to come back in. Yeah. Darken it up. Darken it up. Usually our eyes are set a little bit into our bodies. People don't have flat eyes. They have round eyes. So we're going to give him some shadows. Nice. So we start with our darks, then we kind of go to our lights and our mids. Then we kind of go back to our darks again. Just imagining where these yeah, he's hungry. He just wants something to eat. My grandma used to never kill spiders. But if she saw a brown recluse, she'd stomp on it. I remember one of the craziest things I saw growing up was a centipede. I was watching TV and a centipede crawled into the corner, and I was like, gross, that's a centipede. And then it got stuck in a cobweb, and a spider came out and ate him. And it was a pretty good fight. I think somebody's made that, haven't they? Like where it's kind of mean to put them in that situation, like bug fights, force them to fight, kind of like dog fighting, I suppose. When you put like a beetle against a centipede or a scorpion or something. I'm sure there's some fanatics on the internet that like to watch those type of battles. I know in Japan pet bugs are quite big. But we kind of like to cuddle with our animals in the West, don't we? The artist Eduardo Katz, who I had the pleasure of having a few classes with, he made a rabbit that glue in the dark. Well, it glue under some type of special light, because he took a protein from a jellyfish and he infused it with the rabbit's DNA. So he made a sort of genetically modified rabbit that glue in the dark. He said he wanted it to be a dog so a family could have it. But the government of France, where he had the scientists make it, wouldn't let the rabbit go. So they kept the rabbit, and they didn't give him access to the rabbit because they were scared maybe the rabbit would get free, and then there'd be all these rabbits everywhere. Because rabbits, are known to reproduce quite quickly. So they kept it. And he ended up dying in custody. Yeah. I suppose some people probably feel like they're kind of some sort of transplanted rabbit now in this culture. Why am I even recording? Or why are you watching? Instead of doing, I suppose we like to watch other people do what we can't. Not that this is the most amazing painting of all time, but I like watching videos, people with GoPros on their helmets and jumping off stuff and flying in wingsuits. I'm afraid of heights now, so I wouldn't be very good at flying in a wingsuit. Never had it before. It's funny because I grew up in the middle of nowhere. Well, it wasn't the middle of nowhere. It's a very fine city in North Dakota. But it's quite flat, reminiscent of Tatooine. I love it, going back. Nobody else can understand. I know some people like it there now. Since the Republicans put all the oil under the ground in North Dakota, everyone is quite happy. But nonetheless, even though I was raised in a very flat environment, I was never really afraid of heights till I moved to the city, the big city. Moved to Chicago. Let's give this guy some more structure. Could have been